Hello there, and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We're back again, talking more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And today we're discussing the AEW Exoduses. The other day we were discussing the WWE releases. I believe these are all releases as well, I guess, in some form, in some fashion. I don't think, we knew about Malachi Black a little while ago, but the rest of these guys we kind of knew that they were on the outs, and probably going to leave, but yeah, we didn't know when or where or how or why and all those sorts of details. By the way, before I get too far going on into this video, please consider subscribing if you are not subscribed. And my research shows that most people aren't subscribed, so do subscribe. I have not actually said to subscribe, and it's one of those things that YouTube says that it actually does help people subscribe. So, hey, I'm saying please subscribe so that we can grow the channel and we can get more videos out to you, because that is what motivates me and motivates YouTube to help us grow the channel. Anyway, getting on to the list of peoples here that we are discussing. First, I'm going to talk about Malachi Black, because we've already talked about Malachi Black a little bit here and there throughout. But now, like, his release, I think, actually happened a little while ago, but now you can see like a couple of other guys sort of being released recently, so that's starting to fuel this goings on of saying, well, this is much similar to the WWE release. Now there's a couple of guys that are kind of out of AEW and on the free market, so to speak. Now, obviously, the problem becomes that the perception will be these guys are going WWE. Like, obviously, like, again, that's always the case with a lot of expectations and whatnot, that these guys will go to WWE. I'm sure WWE might want some of these guys and, whatnot, that sort of thing. And perhaps they released a lot of their people that were there to be like, oh, yeah, we can bring in Miro or whoever else and whatever else. I don't want to give away too many of the names. But yeah, we want to bring in these guys and see what we can do with them or whatnot, whatever. That might be their plan in some form, in some fashion. But hey, we're here to, somewhat fantasy, see if we can get them in TNA. Because hey, I think all three of these guys would be good fits in TNA. And like, here's one thing that I will say about their potential in TNA, which is that they would have a much better time in TNA getting actually booked and getting some like meaningful storylines and getting some meaningful stuff. Not to say that WWE can't book these guys, but they have an absolutely stacked roster of people right now. Like, they have got so many people coming out of their ears that they do not know what to do with most of the people that they've got. And just bringing in these guys isn't going to fix that problem. Now, yes, you could put some of them on NXT. I think for two of them, that doesn't really make much sense. But again, if you were to say, well, we're really going to feature you and you're going to be the peak or the highest part of the third brand per se, just to give that third brand something to do, then perhaps you could figure that out. I don't know. It doesn't make much sense to me, because but two of these guys feel like main roster guys effectively to me. Guys that you wouldn't like bat an eyelid to see in the main events or seeing in some significant program. But yeah, Malachi Black, we've talked, as I sort of said, about him a bit. I don't think I need to say too much about Malachi Black. Obviously, from what I've said before, but yeah, like, he would be a good asset, and I said this out there on Twitter and on Facebook, on social media, etc. At least offer the guy something. Like, I think I said this before at somebody who was saying, oh, who do you think, some WWE account was saying something about who do you think we should, look to hire or something at some point there. And I said, look, if you guys can't friggin', you know, um, you know, make do with who you've got, you're just like, you're not trying hard enough, because you've got a absolute ton of people with a ton of potential. And like, again, maybe that's their problem of being like, oh, we just want guys that are already made guys. We don't really want to put that much effort in, or whatever else it is. We don't want to sit them there in developmental or third brand or whatever you want to call it for too long. We want them on the main roster. We want main roster players. That's the thing. Not everyone can do that. You need other guys. You need guys to job to guys, and you need jobbers to the stars. You need to have these other people that are there to put other people over, because not everyone can be the top guys. You have to have your mid-card guys as well. People forget about this, but, and that's where I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of these guys would fall. These guys would have to be on NXT for the most part, because that's the only brand in WWE that isn't absolutely stacked. Right now, so that they could actually have something to do. And even then, they wouldn't have that much to do, I don't think, because still NXT is pretty stacked to some extent, especially with the TNA working relationship right now. So you've got to kind of consider the TNA and NXT rosters as one in some sort of sense. So they're like, in that sense, you could start saying, well, they are in TNA, because like, if they're going to go to NXT, like, then they are in TNA. So I don't know, that could work out. If these guys are going to NXT or whatever, which is what I would think to do with them. But then again, you've got a lot of big names here, or a couple of big names here, but it starts becoming like, well, the time that especially one of these people, the time that they were kind of relevant has kind of just ebbed past, and that is Miro, or aka Rusev from WWE. He had a terrible time in WWE, really, a few years ago. Now it's new management, obviously, so he could have a much better time there, but I, again, don't see that he could do too much there. There are way too many other people that are there that, are taking precedent. And it's like, yes, you could be in the hunt. Yes, you could be in the mix, but you'd just be treading water for a long time before you're actually going to get a sniff of anything. And you've already wasted a long time being in WWE, and then wasted a lot of time in being in AEW. And now you're finally getting out, and now it's like, oh, okay, what am I going to go do? Am I going to spend another 5 years or whatever it is in WWE without really doing anything, and, just sort of meandering around the mid-card or the, whatever, and then maybe I'll, look to retire? I don't know. Like, that doesn't sound good to me. Like, Malachi Black has a lot more potential in some ways because he's a lot younger, but still, like, he doesn't have that much longer if you really think about it, because wrestlers don't have a very long shelf life for the most part, especially when you're trying to be entertaining and trying to keep up with the modern style of professional wrestling. But once you start getting older, you certainly have to sort of slow things down and whatnot, and try to do things differently, or try to make sure that the young guys do more of the work, or whatever else it is. But yeah, like these two guys, like, both of them could fit into TNA. Like, and the third, all these guys could fit into TNA. But like the last person, Ricky Starks, he's a young star. He's up on the rise. And maybe, like, again, you've got to go through that whole thing of, NXT or TNA or whatever else it is, mid-card, for a while, because, yes, you might have the qualities of a star in your look and in your presence and whatnot, that sort of thing. But again, that is one thing, and he's a very decent wrestler from what I've seen some things of him. But again, it's one of those things where it's like you cannot rest on your laurels or whatever else it is. It's always about what have you done for me lately type thing, in a sense. That is the wrestling industry. And yes, he's doing some stuff on the indies or whatever else it is, but again, two people and a dog are seeing that. And that's when they've actually got their house lights on, like, and that's what I say about, like, the difference between, like, any of the super indies or whatever else it is that are out there and, like, productions like TNA, WWE, or AEW. You can actually see what the fuck is going on in TNA because they actually have lighting, and some of these super indies do have lighting and whatnot. But again, that is one of those things. Some of these other shows, they've got really shit lighting. You remember how bad WrestleCade was? Like, that is like some of these places' best day in look, in terms of production. But still, that is what it is. But anyway, again, this young kid, he's got everything. And again, like, if he comes to TNA, he will have a whole bunch of guys that are there that he can work with. And all these guys will have somebody to work with. It depends what exactly you want to do with them, I guess. And how you can, sort of get these guys to, to the point at which, they're going to, like, are they going to be there long term? That's kind of the question that I would propose there. And of course, the perception again would be, well, they're just there for a short while or whatever else it is. They're only going to be there for a few months, maybe a year or whatever else it is, because then they're obviously going to go to WWE. Again, that's always the perception that everyone kind of has. If you're anywhere that's not WWE, you're obviously going to WWE at some point down the road or whatever else it is. So, that's always the thing. And I know we can't change that, but again, it's just one of those things. These guys are absolutely stone cold. Not Stone Cold Steve Austin. They are stone cold in terms of any... like, maybe they've got something going on. Like, I think Ricky Starks is probably the number one here as far as, like, he's been wrestling on the indies. I haven't really seen or heard much of Miro working on the indies. I haven't heard of Malachi working on the indies and whatnot and that sort of thing over the last few months, over the last few years. I saw a bit of a match there that Ricky Starks had with Santana and whatnot. So he, like, all these guys know that TNA is there, and TNA should get their, bank books out. They just lost a whole bunch of wrestlers, and it is one of those things to say, well, they could invest more time and energy into some of the young stars or whatever else it is. But if you bring in some of these guys, even for a short period of time, to say, okay, you might be coming through our doors just to go to WWE or whatever it is, but hey, you know what? We're going to bring you in. We're going to put you in a prominent spot for a few months or whatever it is. And then we're going to have you help bring up some of our young guys up to the next level so that we have somebody else after you leave. Like, if that's the goal, I think that's 100% fine, because you're not only utilizing these guys like Malachi and Miro that, were in WWE for like I think Miro was there for over a decade, I think it was, and really didn't do anything. And Miro was in AEW for like 4 or 5 years at this point, I think it's been. Something like that. And he hasn't done really anything. Like, the Redeemer gimmick was kind of there and did stuff, but like, he still, that was still really dropped the ball on. Malachi Black, he's been there for probably just as long. And it's like, again, like, relegated to being a trios guy instead of being, the leader of a faction and being like being the face of, the division, or doing something bigger, and trying to take things over, or trying to do something more, impressive, or whatever else it is. Ricky Starks really hasn't made a big name for himself yet. He's still developing, but he's got a lot behind him. He's still, got a lot behind him. A lot of people, hardcore wrestling fans know who he is and know what he's kind of about. This kid could have all the tools to become the next Stone Cold Steve Austin, or the next Rock, or the next Joe Hendry, or whatever. Obviously, you want him to become his own version of that, the next John Cena, or whatever else it is. But again, just thinking shoot this kid to the moon, give this kid a chance, and, give him opponents to work with, Malachi and Miro, and plus the rest of the TNA roster, And that roster needs more talent in it. And there's a whole bunch of other talent that are kind of out there now that we've discussed as we did before. But again, we actually, it's funny. Something I heard there and I saw there the other day, that Jordan Grace took a pay cut to go to WWE, which is insane to me in many ways. But again, I don't know how she was getting paid and what she was getting paid, or whatever it was. But again, it's one of those things, well, she was the top of the division in many ways. And her not lack of presence there right now, but, the lack of presence of Jordan Grace there now is, really being felt. It's Marsha's there, but again, I like Marsha, but I think she just hasn't had very many credible opponents to really go against. She hasn't had that many great stories, and they haven't really invested enough time in some of these things, or enough, it's just not enough of anything with what she's been doing thus far. So I really haven't found anything, or felt like anything has been so consequential to feel oh man, she really came out of that one by the hook of her teeth, or whatever, skin of her teeth, or whatever, that's what you should feel. You should always feel oh crap, she had to battle through that one, or whatever it is, Same with Joe Hendry. I mean, he's really just won the title, so and it is feeling very weird not knowing the what the title match is going to be at Sacrifice. I kind of feel like it'll be Nick Nemeth versus Joe Hendry. That would make a whole lot of sense in some ways, unless you're kind of well, we kind of want to do other stuff with Nick Nemeth, or we want to hold off on doing that, because what we want to do is we want people to feel oh man, he's gotten a few wins back, and he's back in that singles division, and he's back in that groove, or whatever it is. Hasn't really lost a step, or whatever else it is, and people are still going to think oh, this guy could win, because he's still being in that position. And I did discuss this before, where it's if you're a financial or money kind of person, in a sense, when you're looking at the dollars and cents and whatever else it is, that is the ultimate motivator of in some ways should be the ultimate motivator of who gets what and who goes where and how come and why and that sort of thing. Because at the end of the day, this is a business. And the goal is to sell tickets. The goal is to sell pay-per-view buys. The goal is to get, advertising revenue for this. So those are the goals. So anything that shifts money is what should be on top. So that is an objectively unbiased, look, and no favoritism or whatever else it is, in a sense. Like, not that they know what they're talking about, but to say, hey, we've at least got to have the person that's drawing us in the most money on top, or at least like figured in, so that we can feel, so that we can be drawing in that money. Again, draw the people in. So again, like, they have to always have something for the fans to chew into, and for the wrestlers, because that is when the fans are at the height of interest. And it is a little bit annoying because, again, it's like, well, you're gonna bring in this person, they're gonna lose probably within a few months or whatever else it is. So is there any real perception of saying, oh, well, the title's really in danger or in jeopardy, when, it's like, oh, here's Miro, here's whoever it is, and then it's like, oh, well, we're going to see this next month. It's like, yeah, that's a real rush, to get these people in and then get them to the title picture. But it's like, well, what else can you do? It's like, who else is there for Joe to fight? There isn't very many people for him to fight, and it's like, well, you've got to find some monsters for him to fight, and that's the way it goes. It's like, well, we need these guys to be in here, or somebody else. Again, if you could find somebody that's on the indies and bring them in and book them right, or do whatever and treat them like a monster for Joe to slay, I don't think that that's the wrong move. I think that it is a tough move, because it's like, well, you look at Big Bill, or W. Morrissey, as we knew him in TNA. In some ways, he was booked really well. He was booked like a monster, at least in his early run. He looked like he could have been like the champ, booked well up until that point, and then, well, things happened, and they were like, oh, might have cold feet or whatever it was, because he wasn't going to stick around, or didn't look like he was going to stick around. So they were like, well, we can't do anything with you if you're not going to stick around, or anything significant, and that's how it is. Like Nick Nemeth, I think Nick Nemeth is now on an official contract, not just on a handshake. But when he was on just a handshake agreement, it's like, I do feel like that there was probably some trepidation there to put the title on him in some regards. But I think that might have been part of kind of the deal of saying, hey, if you come over, we'll put the belt on you, type thing, And maybe that, again, TNA is now taping more regularly and somewhat. So I wouldn't say that it's going to be a much lighter schedule in some ways, but they've already had weeks and months off, a lot of these guys, because they just weren't getting used. I mean, Rick, I said, Ricky's been on the indies and been doing stuff. I've seen some of that, or little bits here and there, or heard little bits here and there. I haven't heard about Malachi or Miro doing stuff on the indies of late. So it's like, well, what are the, obviously, again, you talk about guys like Andrade. I felt like Andrade's been a big miss in WWE. And you can't just look at the success stories of Cody Rhodes or whoever else it is that have crossed over and whatnot. And you can't just look at the the failures or the flops or the misses or whatever else either. You've got to look at it of being objective and saying, hey, if I go to WWE, where am I going to fit in? I'm probably going to fit in the mid card. And for Ricky, that probably is pretty good for him because he's still on the up and up, in the most part. And like still like 90% of the WWE audience might not know who he is, but whatever. Still, and it might not be the best place for him, honestly, because he'll just get compared to The Rock and all this and whatnot. So it's like, well, or get compared to LA Knight. So it's like, well, is he really doing like his own gimmick? I guess it could be like tough again because he could be compared to Joe Hendry in some ways. Again, in that regard, if he goes to TNA. So, but he is much more like The Rock or Austin in some ways. Like we know this, like his mannerisms, the way he does things, much more like that. At least as a character. I mean, like you could start thinking like this could be a reboot for some of these guys. But like realistically, like we know like what Miro does best is either absolutely trying to kill you or having like Miro Day. Those are the things that he did best in his career. And we know what Malachi Black does best, which is sort of spooky, ooky stuff. And it's like going to be really tough for Malachi to kind of do that. In WWE, the Wyatt Six are already there, so it's like, well, he can't be with the Wyatt Six. He's got to either go against them or he's got to be on the other show compared to the Wyatt Six, so that he feels special. He can't be like, caught in the mix of that sort of thing. Otherwise, he's going to lose his uniqueness and it's going to be like, what the heck is going on type thing, I think, like, as I said, there's just no downside to bringing in any of these guys, all three of these guys, whatever it is. So again, like, I am hopeful, but will I be surprised if none of these guys turn up in TNA? Probably not. I won't be too shocked if they don't turn up. I won't be too sad if they don't turn up, but I will be a little bit disappointed because it would be just so great if they could get at least one of these guys, or even if they could get all three of them, it would be just like spectacular. Like, even if they worked out a deal with WWE, again, I was sort of saying this before, hey, how about you buy these talents, but you know what? You don't want to invest time or invest energy into building these guys up, or rebuilding up some of these guys. Let us have them for 6 months or whatever else it is, and let us give them a decent run for 6 months. It'll really help us out, and it'll really help you out because we'll send you them once they're hot, or at least send you Malachi and send you Miro when they're hot. I'd say you really want Ricky Starks to stay if you can get him to, and again, that comes down to the talent or to their agents or whatever else it is, decisions and whatnot. But again, like, I would want to keep Ricky because, again, like, he would be a great asset in the next couple of years, like within the next 2-3 years. Like, absolutely, you could make him a main eventer in the next 2 or 3 years. Absolutely. Like, if you decided, okay, we're going to give him a pathway to becoming the next, top guy. He's going to beat Eric Young. He's going to beat Kazarian. He's going to beat all these other people. He's going to get a name for himself. He's going to, fight with Santana, or whoever else is here. And he's going to have really good promos and we're going to have really good stuff for him to do, for 2 or 3 years. Like, because that's a guy you can invest in for 2 or 3 years or whatever it is, even more after that at a certain point. But Malachi and Miro, I think they could be good in a short burst, like maybe 1 or 2 years at most. Like, I don't think you could do stuff with them more long term, but I think like at a certain point they could become part of the furniture in a sense, unless you're going to put them at that top level and put the belt on them. So it does become like, well, they do feel more like they're transitioning through and they're just here for 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is, and then they're going off to WWE because now they're actually hot after being in AEW for however bloody long and then not doing anything for like 80 something percent of that, and whatever else it is. And I understand the situation that Tony Khan's kind of in. He's got 1,000,000,001 toys and he doesn't know what to do with them all. But again, that's the problem, like, of saying, well, instead of buying another 100 or 30 or whatever else, wrestlers from WWE is, look at the roster that you've got and go, bro, we've got too many people as it is. Let's figure out what we're doing with the guys that we've got. And then let's figure out if we really, 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 really need one of these guys or two of these guys or whatever it is, or one of these girls that will shake up the division or shake up the things here and figure out what we're going to do from here. Instead of going, well, we're just going to buy all these guys because we can, and then we're going to turn around and go, oh, yeah, well, we don't really have anything to figure out. Actually, it was funny. This is not funny, but it's funny that I actually just realized this the other day, and it wasn't on the list, that I didn't see it, at least. What's her last name? Maria Kanellis Bennett. Because it's hyphenated, I just forgot about what the hyphenate was, which way it went, sorry. She is now a free agent, I believe. From AEW. So that's another person, and she's been in TNA. I don't think I do think that she and Mike went to WWE at one point as well. Which is kind of weird. Like, okay, sure. Like, I think that they, like, I don't know whether Mike and what's his name, Matt Traven, are still in Ring of Honor, AEW, or whatever else it is. I don't know. I don't. Because, like, what are they doing? I don't know. It's like they were in a faction with, what's his name? Adam Cole, baby. And, like, it looks like, what's her name? The dentist one. What's her name? Big friends with Virtuoso Deanna Prazo. Dr. Britt Baker. There we go. My brain just couldn't think. But it looks like she's on the way out. Though I've heard a lot of, like, quote-unquote negative things there said about her. Kind of. And, like had Thunder Rosa having said, some negative things. Which is kind of weird because, Gianna Prazo is one of her best friends, and hey, here comes Thunder Rosa to wrestle Gianna Prazo just a few years ago, whatever it was. That was kind of feeling a bit awkward at the time, I think, because it was like, hey, this person and this person are friends, and it's like, oh, this person and this person are kind of having an issue. It's like, oh. I'm guessing, like, again, it's just all the, professionalism in the world to an extent, saying, hey, we might not like each other, but we know each other, or whatever, or we might, be having a common person that we know having a row, or whatever else it is, but at the end of the day, hey, we've got to do business, and that's it, like, so, but yeah. No, like, I've said this before with a lot of the girls that got released, and I think there was actually another girl that got released or something there just after I released that episode, I think it was, or just at the same time I was doing it. And I was like, of course there would be. But from my perspective, it's like, oh yeah, that division does need help. And I was talking about it the other day, and I was just like, man, do they know what they're doing? Like, sometimes it really doesn't feel like they know what they're doing. So I don't know, dude, but yeah, whatever. I feel bad for Savannah in many ways because it's like, they sort of botched her in bringing her back and not pushing her as hard as what they perhaps should have done. Um, you know, and like not making enough time for the division overall. Like, again, that's why I keep saying, like, maybe just like scrap the whole secondary title thing, just like focus on the singles divisions, focus on the singles competition, have some tag team matches here and there when it's necessary, but and sort of have loose alliances, but just focus in on everyone wants to get the Knockouts title so that you can have other things going on and just dedicate more time to the division overall as one unified division rather than all this other stuff's going on and whatnot. Like, then factions and teams or whatever else it is sort of mean more when, people are working together and it's like, oh, suddenly we've got to overcome this obstacle of these two people working together because we're used to working alone. It gives you much more to work with, I think, in story than, like, oh, we are already, everyone's tagging because we haven't got anything better to do, or kind of that's how it feels, at least. Like, that's my perspective. They don't know what else to do with them. So they're like, oh, here's some stuff to do while we don't know what else to do with you, type thing. So, and stuff that's not significant enough to really warrant anyone's attention or whatever else it is. And then we're going to be, breaking up teams, throwing them together again, whatever else it is, blah, blah, blah. We don't really care because we've just got to have a wrestling show every week. And there's not enough thought put into it. Like, in a sense, like, it's like, if I had thought about it, I would have said no. Just like forget about the tag teams, have a singles division, make some factions here and there, or make some, like proper, like uniting teams or whatever sort of here. Like Ash and Heather by Elegance, have them as a unit, like starting to take out the competition together, and then people have got to work together suddenly to be like, hey, you can't work together to take us out of, the competition to win the title or whatever else it is. We'll face you in a tag team match. That makes the tag team matches more important and like rarer, and whatnot. And it really helps because, again, you're trying too hard to make these tag team matches as it is. So it's like you might as well just relegate them to being something rare that happens every now and again, or trios matches or whatever else it is. Again, make them rare, make them special, and then people are more invested when they do happen, and whatnot. You don't, not just seeing it every single week or whatever else it is, and then it's like, or not, and you're not even seeing that. But again, like when you do see it, it's like, yeah, this is the same old thing pretty much, and it's like, well, it's not really going anywhere. It's always going to be going around and round in circles type thing of like, these people are going to have the belt, they're going to drop the belt. There's only a couple of teams really in the division, and then somebody's going to lose the belt and somebody's going to win the belt. Like, there's no urgency there. There's no like real stakes there because like, the 2 or 3 teams that are there and that's it. It's like, yeah, what a division of like 3 teams you've got, or 2 or 3 teams, like, or even one team at times. Like, why are you breaking these teams up? I don't know, especially when it's like you need more teams. Like, oh my god, you need to invest so much energy and effort into making those tag teams that's like, well, might as well just say no, let's just forget about it and figure out a proper singles division, so we don't have to continually raid the tag team division for people to fight whoever is the champion. It makes like building stories to the championship easier because you haven't got to split up tag teams or whatever else it is properly to like you don't have that opportunity to break up tag teams and somebody becomes a big star and then or like becomes the heel champion type thing and then the babyface comes back and like tries to get their redemption or whatever else it is. But again, you can still do that kind of thing. So I don't know. I don't really see the point in, continuing to push that division. But whatever. That's just me. I keep getting on that subject, but whatever. Still, I still feel like all these guys, TNA should absolutely pursue. 100% pursue. Like if you're not going to get him, you're not going to get him at the end of the day. That's going to be what it's going to be. But if you don't go out and try to get these guys under contract, then it's like, well, why are you even in business? Like at a certain point, like you've got to try to get these guys, even if you think they're 100% going to WWE and you can't outbid WWE. You can offer other things to them. You can say, hey, look, we have less dates. You're not going to have to work as many dates. Not to say that we're not going to feature you. We are going to 100% feature you, because you would be, big time players here in this place, where we haven't got as many people, we do have a lot of people, but we don't have a lot of top tier people right now vying for those positions. And we need extra heels to come in. So, they'll all probably be heels. And you could put like Malachi and Miro basically right into the world title picture. You could put Ricky Starks into the X Division picture. I feel like he is a better heel. But again, you could ride with him being a babyface for a little while or whatever else it is. And then you could show that other side that he's got, kind of thing. So, but I don't know. It's up to them. They have that opportunity and, they should take it, in my opinion. And I would, if I was them, I would think about, like as I said before, look at WWE. Look legitimately at WWE, not just saying, I know how good I am. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good you are. You're only as good as how hot or cold you are. You are all cold. Absolutely cold. TNA can bring you in cold and get you hot. WWE, I guess they could do that absolutely 100% if they wanted to. But the thing is, look at how many opportunities there are in WWE. Not a lot. I am sorry to say, there are not a lot of opportunities to break out because there are so many people trying to break out that it is absolutely ridiculous. There is no conceivable way that a lot of these guys would be able to break out because there's just too many other people. There's Pentagon, there's Gunther, there's like hundreds of other people that are trying to break out. There were hundreds of other people that just got released and were trying to break out. Yes, like none of them were all like probably like Miro or Malachi Black or Ricky Starks. But again, still, a lot of these guys had potential. A lot of these guys that are getting released have had that and have had that success even in some regards. But still, you've got to look at saying, well, I could go to New Japan, I could go to the Indies, or I could go to TNA. And if I really want to go to WWE at some point in the future, hey, that option's still there. And hey, maybe I'll get a foot in the door by going to TNA because they have that working relationship with WWE. And if they see, hey, look, I can actually, prove these people wrong, that I am good enough to be over there in WWE, they might take another look. And they might, they might offer you even more money because now they go, holy crap, they've been doing some good stuff, and it looks like they're getting their booty together. If you go there while you're cold, you're going to be getting less money because they're not going to see you as big of an asset because you are cold. You have nothing, no hype, no interest, yes, but no real big hype. Nothing to go on. So they've got to create all the hype for you, kind of thing. Whereas that's what they're already doing with like 40 or 50 other guys. So it's like, yes, how about go somewhere else where there are actually opportunities for you? Because again, that is what you were missing in AEW. So, like, it's just silly to me to go to WWE where there aren't very many opportunities versus going to TNA where there are literally tons of opportunities for you to fit into just about anywhere. So, but that is me. That is my thoughts. You guys can let me know your thoughts. Write them down there in the comments below. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Hope you join me again in the next one.